Hi everyone, happy Monday. I am here to give you some details on this week's distance learning. We are in week 6 this week, and we will be looking at some more plant propagation and examples of what those propagation types can be. So remember, you want to be in horticulture, whichever period is your class period, under classwork and distance learning specifically. Week 6 has 3 things attached to it. The first is your Hort assignment log that you always have. Remember, this gives you your assignments in the order in which you should do them and what's due for each of them. So it's a really good way for you to decide what it is that you have to get done during the week. Then you'll have your plant propagation Google Doc, and then lastly, your weekly reflection for this week, okay? So if we look at the Hort assignment log this week, it says that we have a plant propagation examples Google Doc as well as a weekly reflection Google form. You'll need your Chromebook. You'll need to use Google search as well as Google Images this week to complete that assignment. So let's open plant propagation examples. You notice it is a chart. It says last week you learned what plant propagation meant and what the different types there are besides planting seeds, right? Seeds is our initial propagation, but there are ways to do other things like cuttings, which is taking a piece of the plant, putting it in the soil, layering, breaking apart in division, grafting, taking pieces of one and adding it to others. So there's all these different types of propagation styles. So for each of the propagation types, this should say, types, you will be responsible for finding a house plant or a food crop that can be propagated using each of these methods. Okay, you will fill out this chart below. You'll need to use Google search or Google Images to complete it. So we have cutting. So the first thing is you're going to go into Google, and I have an example here. So let's say I'm trying to figure out what plants can be taken from cuttings. I typed into Google search which plants can you take cuttings from, what plants can you take pieces from to make new plants. And when I search, it gives me plants which can be propagated from stem cuttings. Stem cuttings are those pieces that you would have looked at last week in a cutting type. Okay, so the first one it gives me is African violet. So I'm going to use that one as my type. I would go back to my chart, type in African violet. And then now I'm going to be looking for a couple things. First, I need the scientific name for African violet. So I'm going to type that in, and it's going to give me a scientific name, which I am going to copy and I'm going to paste into my document, and actually make sure that you paste it so that it does not show up in its form from Google. So let me just go ahead and get rid of that. Actually, I'm going to have to, there we go. Now I'm going to be looking for its growth requirements. If you guys remember from a little ways back, I'm trying to get us some of that information back to the front of our minds. Growth requirements are water, light, temperature, things that are going to help that plant to grow. So for something like water requirements, I'm going to type in African violet growth requirements. And now I'm going to be looking for some different websites or some different things that tell me how to grow. So this one says African violets, how to care for African violets. So I'm going to click that one there. And now I'm looking for those growth requirement things. So first off, how much water does it need? And then second, how much light does it need? Okay, so I'm going to read through this. It tells me about keeping it light moisture. It tells me how much light to give it, and that's where I would find my information and then bring it over here and type it into these two boxes. Okay. Lastly, notice that it wants an image of the plant, so you could come up here and copy that image and then paste it into this box. Obviously, it's going to paste it into that box for us. You can make it a little bigger if you'd like. You can leave it as small as it is. Just make sure that you do it in a way that it's going to allow the document to not to be super large. So this is a perfect size for what we need, okay? So now you'll go through and do it for the rest of them. Find a plant that you like, find its scientific name, and then find those two growth requirements for me and a picture to attach, okay? Google will be a really good source here. Google Images will be a really good source here. Once you finish that, since I know that this process might take you guys a day or so, depending on how much time you have a day with your other classes, I've only assigned this one thing this week so that one, if you need to go back and review from last week and figure out what each of those are, you have time to do that. Plus, you can go back and look at that vocabulary if you need to. Last thing you'll do for this week is your weekly reflection. Please make sure that we're paying attention to this 5-sentence minimum. I know we've kind of gotten into a routine now, so it's easy to miss some of those requirements as you get in the habit of doing these things, but make sure that you're still giving me those 5 sentences like you should be, okay? Remember, the assignment log tells you what to do. If you have any questions or need any help, please make sure you're emailing me to let me know what's going on. I am happy to help when I can. Otherwise, I hope you guys have a really nice week. Let me know if you need anything, and I will talk to you guys really soon.